All right, everybody. It is May 16th, and today I'm going over how I feel a second wave is inevitable and how that could really upset the market, lead to cause for China to start growing on its goal of becoming a world power, and how it could really affect your life and the daily lives of Americans more and more as this continues to grow. So, we're going to start out with our quote. It's actually almost a two-part quote. Starts off with President Trump. Nobody has better respect for intelligence than me, Donald Trump. A quote by him. Well, bad news. Top coronavirus health expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, recent warnings about potentially dire consequences of reopening states and schools too soon was not an acceptable answer, President Donald Trump said Wednesday. So, Dr. Fauci had a hearing before the Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions, here it says. And he spoke to some very dire situations that could occur if we don't, go through this process correctly. And one of the things that could be done very incorrectly is opening up the states, opening up our economy, going back to the old normal too soon. And Trump did not really appreciate that. He's talked a lot about how America is not supposed to be closed, and that's very true. America is meant to be open. But at the same time, Americans aren't meant to die. So there's a fine line, and we got to figure out how to walk that tightrope, and right now we aren't doing too great. And this quote here kind of shows that, in my opinion. But Texas reopened May 1st. They ended pretty much all restrictions, and you can go do most anything you want. And that's kind of showing to not be a great move at this point. So we can see here, they had a very quick upturn. Things went pretty flat, and actually, their cases, these are new cases every single day, by the way, started to go down a little bit here. And then they opened back up, and we can see May 1st they opened back up, and you can see this trend line, the 7-day trend line. It's starting to go up again. It's starting to have an uptick. We'll keep following this because hopefully, I pray it doesn't spike like it did down here. But if it spikes like that, the new cases amounts would be absolutely insurmountable. It would be something like we'd never seen. By the way, Google has a new coronavirus count, like a following thing. You can look it up, coronavirus, on Google for their daily counts, test amounts, things like that. It's very user-friendly, looks really pretty. You can look at every single country, state, anything you want, even every county for the most part. Pretty neat. So here's some news article headlines about opening up too soon. Public health experts say many states are opening too soon to do so safely. That's true. We don't have the tests. We don't have equipment. I've said it before. I'll say it again. When we originally closed down, what is different than from now? We don't have any new treatments. We don't have a new vaccine. The only thing we have is possibly more hospital beds ready to take people that are going to die just as quick as before, except there will be more of them. Here we go. Coronavirus flare-ups in China and South Korea prompt new fears over a second wave. This is true. There's becoming more and more evidence that China's having a new flare-up, and they've even spoken a little to it. And South Korea had a couple new flare-ups that they've quickly tampered out, because South Korea is on the ball. If we really look at it, the key to their success is testing, testing, testing. It's all free. There's so many of it. Anybody who wants or needs a test can pretty much get one there, and that's something we don't have. Fauci says, we spoke about this a little sooner, consequences could be serious if U.S. states open up too soon. And that's true, If we have to close down again, that's going to be bad. People start dying, that's bad. Businesses have to close when others are open, that's all bad. As states rush to reopen, scientists fear coronavirus comeback. We saw that. Let's go back here. We've seen the uptick right here. Texas, May 1st, starts to open back up, and we can see that 7-day rolling average if we kind of point it out on its own. It's going up. We don't want to see that. So let's do a quick imagine if America had to shut down again. Well, we saw it tank before. It's going to tank just as bad, if not worse, if we have to go through this whole shutdown process again. So I really hope we can figure something out, but if we can't, we're going to have people on the trading floor doing that look, watching the numbers in disbelief. That's all we could. We did that a lot of times before when we had multiple 2,000, 3,000 point losses in a single day. Unbelievable. But if we lose and we do have to shut down again, there's a person that'll win. That's China. Here we go. Let's read some news articles. This one from May 15th. That's yesterday. China is mobilizing its global media machine in coronavirus war of words. They're going to make it try to seem like it wasn't their fault. They're going to try to change the world opinion. They're going to try to make it seem that they did everything they could to stop this. We all know that's not true, but it's also true here in America. We didn't do everything we could do to stop it too. So who's the bigger loser there, right? Report China casts itself as global savior while US and EU focus on virus at home. There we go. March 19th. We can see here that since March, China has been trying to use their global media machine to make themselves seem better and better than they could. Again, we know that's not true, but if we really look close to home, we know that here in America, that's not true either. And we'll talk about this on the next slide. China massive Belt and Road Initiative. What is that? Well, China is trying to grow. China is trying to become a world power. We know that. They're open to that. And this is just going to give them more opportunity to do that. When we're struggling here at home, we have to focus on what's going on here at home. When China's not struggling at home or they're struggling less than us at home, they can focus on things outside of their borders. We're going to go through that here in a little bit. And a lot of you might be thinking why this is bad that China is trying to grow. Well, we'll go over a little bit of that too. If you really look into it, there's lots of reports of China doing things like organ targeting, social credit scores, changing how your life is lived, all sorts of just gross human rights problems that they have going on all the time, just the way China is. You know, they don't believe Taiwan is a country. There's all sorts of issues. So what is the China Belt and Road Initiative? Well, it started in 2013, and it's an initiative similar to the Silk Road of past, where China is investing in countries and infrastructure from Southeast Asia all the way to Europe, also largely in Africa, in exchange for political and economic power. The goal is to grow the use of the yen, their currency, to gain more allies for rough times, and to grow China's goal of becoming a world power. And it's not just for rough times, it's to gain political and economic power in good times as well. And there's a large amount of opposition from other countries from China's lackluster human rights past. I talked about that just a moment ago. China has had lots and lots of issues with things like coming up with their crazy social credit scores, all of their internet blocking and just limiting what people can see, only having intergovernmental news agencies releasing news articles. You know, China does a lot of that things. You can even look into things like organ harvesting, how they act against certain forms of Muslims. As I said before, Taiwan not a country in their mind. And some of China's largest allies currently are North Korea and Cuba. Well, let's look at those countries. They aren't great. They're not awesome places to live. In fact, North Korea only trades with China. The only reason why North Korea is still around, why North Korea can enslave so many of its people and just feed them lies and kill so many people and have people just live these awful, horrible lives, is because China allows them to. If China didn't trade with North Korea would no longer be a country. They would have collapsed. That is pretty much inevitable. And over 60 countries have signed on to the Belt and Road Initiative. So again, to go a little more in depth about like how these work, it's basically a loan from the Chinese government that they can repay back in various ways. Sometimes it's high interest through cash. Sometimes it's the use of yen in all transactions. There's all sorts of different ways, different contracts. But again, the whole goal of it is China to just grow themselves as a world power. And we don't want a country that has vast, vast human rights issues being the world power. We want a country, like America, that 9 times out of 10 is fairly good human rights wise to be the leader of how the world should aim to be. So this isn't good. This China Belt and Road Initiative to me is one of the worst things going on in the world right now. But the problem is remember last time we argued with China, this was over a trade war, and we'll go into that here in just a second. But Dow plunged 760 points in worst day of 2019. Now, again, we've seen many worse days since then, but if we get another trade war with China over who creates our goods and essential services and essential goods, and also, come the day that we come at China for what they did for allowing this virus and lying about what this virus really is, it's not going to be good. We're going to see a lot of bad days. In my mind, I see no outing to this where there is stability. So, we need to talk about instability is inevitable. I think we can all see that second waves are coming. what China's going to do in the future is kind of already written in stone. How we're going to deal with this, it's not good. Instability is inevitable. So we need to follow the steps. We need to cut our spending. We need to save, save, save. Again, remember, if you only can start with $1,000 or $2,000, think about how many of those issues that happen in day life could be just forgiven. Just all of a sudden become not an issue so much. We need to invest when deeply, deeply educated. We need to look at things, look at the market, look at the companies, understand exactly what's going on before we invest in it. And right now, there's a lot of unknowing going out there in the world. And when there's unknowing, you don't want to invest in the short term. If you need that money out in 6 months, this might not be the time. But if you need that money in 15, 20, 30 years, that might be the time. Help others when able, right? We have neighbors going through hard times. We have friends, family, just people around us in our world, coworkers that are not doing great right now, and we need to help them when we can. And lastly, we need to educate. There's a lot of us around us, a lot of people around us that just have no clue what to do. They think everything's going to be fine. They think it's going to be a V-shaped recovery, even though I talked about that in videos past, that we pretty much know at this point is not going to be a V-shaped recovery. So we need to work on these things. We need to make sure that even though instability is going to happen, that our way of life is not going to be normal for a while, we need to know that there's ways through this. But what am I doing? Well, I've talked about this in videos past too. I'm buying silver if I can. I think silver is primed to just go racing up in value, just absolutely skyrocketing. Remember, do your own research though, but I really do. And secondly, I'm gardening. I think adding stability to your life in any way possible right now is the only way for us to feel like we have normalcy. And if you don't want to garden, you don't have to garden. But anything you can do to add stability, safety in your life right now, that's important. But lastly, I'm also doing some research. Tomorrow, I think, is going to be a good episode. You know, we are spending trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars right now on stimulus and debt. But how are we going to get out of that? Also, how much has the Fed itself spent? It's a lot of money. And what's going to happen when those bills become due? I'm going to go over that tomorrow. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you then.